You know what we did at OpenAI? I was a huge skeptic of this. So Deloitte came to us and said, give me full access to Numeric and NetSuite.
I built their first treasury team. I've managed about 60 different legal entities, hundreds of bank accounts.
Did you say 60 legal entities, 60? What software tools are you using in your accounting team?
We're approving invoices on Slack. We're approving journal entries in our Slack. This may be controversial.
Hello, everyone. This is Saumya, and this is the Lumera podcast. Today's guest is Sean Han. He is the Chief Accounting Officer at Fetch Rewards. Sean, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Like you said, I'm Chief Accounting Officer at Fetch Rewards, where I'm focusing on building a scalable platform for financial reporting, controls, operations, processes, and systems that can support the fast-growing companies like Fetch. Early in my career, I spent some time with large companies like Deloitte, PwC, mostly doing auditing and technical accounting. I then temporarily ventured out to BNP Paribas and KKR, and I did treasury for a few years. And that was by design because I didn't want to be pigeonholed into a single vision accountant. Eventually, I found my way back to accounting through a residential solar company. It's called Sunrun back in 2013. And that was a pre-IPO environment. That was my first venture into startup. There, I built their first treasury team. I've managed about 60 different legal entities, hundreds of bank accounts, and just massive amount of financing transactions, both.
Did you say 60 legal entities, 60?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was a very complicated leasing arrangement. Every fund we had lessor and lessee, and depends on how you structure it, because the purpose is to provide residential customers solar services, and the investors get tax credits.
Oh, so it's like a win-win.
Exactly.
Okay, very interesting.
But to this date, like Sunrun has been the most complicated company from an accounting or even finance perspective. What's strange was like I fell in love with the chaos. I just instantly fell in love with the startup. Just fast forward to now, just prior to Fetch, I was also chief accounting officer at another pre-IPO company called Masterclass.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was at pre-IPO company turned public company in their wallet, where I was able to help the company become a public company in 2021. And just to kind of wrap up my intro here, you can tell I'm a natural builder. I love building the environment, the teams, the processes and systems to help companies scale in the right direction so that the company can do bigger and better things like IPOs, acquisitions, and international expansions. So that's what I feel like I'm passionate about. And that's the nutshell of my career.
I just want to say, like, not only have you been at these iconic companies, you've been there at a time where you had to build out a lot of the accounting function. And the other pattern I'm seeing is these are all, complex business models in one way or another. It's not your plain vanilla company. So I am really excited to jump into this interview. I am confident you're going to have a really unique set of perspectives based on the level of complexity you've operated at.
Yeah. Looking forward to the chat.
Yes. Let's fast forward to Fetch.
Oh, yeah. So Fetch is a Series F pre-IPO company, and it's actually one of the fastest growing consumer companies in the nation. In a nutshell, Fetch is a consumer rewards platform by providing our consumers really easy ways to earn rewards points. So it's as easy as taking a picture of your paper receipt and be able to get a relevant Fetch points right away. You can convert and you can redeem those Fetch points into gift cards of your choice. You can earn points from everyday purchases. So it ranges from grocery, retails, online shoppings, most recently restaurants, mobile games. And we're always looking to expand ways for our consumers to earn rewards. So that's the B2C side. B2B side, if you just take the layer off, you can instantly tell how intricate and valuable our business can be for advertisers. So we work with companies ranging from Fortune 500 companies down to, you know, we're working on SMB, but currently mid-sized advertisers. And what they do is they run ad campaigns on our platform. And what's unique about it, it's unique about our service offering is that we are able to connect them at the SKU level, right? At the product level, and be able to really gain visibility into which ones are doing well, which ones are not, which ones to promote more versus not, right? So as a result, they're able to really manage to get higher return on advertisement spending compared to, I would say, I dare to say, any other competitors in the space. In terms of tech, if you don't mind me just highlighting one more thing, we built a very strong moat, technological moat of, having this machine learning, technology, which allows us to read and analyze vendor receipts from all types of vendors.
This is super interesting because, like, in the brick and mortar world, this data lives in all sorts of like legacy POS systems and other places where you can't even, like, even if you're willing to pay them money, they might not have an API to expose that kind of data. So, this is super interesting.
Yeah.
It also brings me back to this theme of being at a win win marketplace, just like you are at Sunrun, right? Like, both sides are benefiting, and being in that kind of marketplace is, you're kind of in a very positive flywheel. So hopefully this flywheel continues to go, up and to the right. I am very curious, bringing this back to accounting,
Mm.
what would you say, this sounds like a pretty complex business just based on everything I've heard, but what would you say makes the accounting at this company uniquely challenging?
Yeah. Yeah. When it comes to accounting, it's quite interesting. So before I joined this company, I had thought, hey, it's a cash app. What could be so complicated? But it turns out Fetch Rewards is one of the most complicated business I've seen in the past. I mean, trust me, I've seen like very
You've seen complex.
in the past. And it's quite up there. And the reason is that we mainly focus on two things, right? So revenue recognition, as with any tech companies. And we have what's unique to us is points liability,
Mm-hmm.
right? Since we offer points to our consumers, we have to account for that. Revenue recognition side, we are basically considered as a marketplace from an accounting point of view. So what that means is gross versus net analysis gets quite complicated.
Mm-hmm.
Payments to customer model analysis gets quite complicated because we have to kind of determine who is the customer here when we're partnering with two, three, four different partners at a time, right? Our business is also very much volume driven business, right? Each SKU makes up one item in a campaign model. So what that means is we have, tier-based discounts that we need to take into account. We need to apply variable consideration exceptions and all that stuff. So all of that, combined, it is quite complicated business when it comes to revenue recognition. And then second thing, on the points liability side, so if you can think of like how a data driven business runs, this is like a typical model for us. Like on the B2C side, every single, purchase and every single redemption creates a data point for us. And we got about a little north of 12 million monthly active users right now.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a massive data that we need to ingest and digest to understand exactly what's happening. So we actually have to engage with an actuary firm to help us understand, okay, what is the trend of our breakage percentage? So we can apply to the outstanding points on our balance sheet. And what's also making it complicated is you also have to think about cost per point, right? Because
Mm.
when the points are being converted to different gift cards, we may have different margins for each one of those gift cards that we offer. So apply both breakage and cost of points into our points and really create, a complicated calculation of points liability on every quarter basis. I think what made the business or accounting such a challenging for us is that
Mm,
when I came on, our infrastructure on the accounting side was incredibly nascent, right?
mm,
But when your business is that much complicated, when you don't have cross departmental communication, you don't have order to cash process, you don't know where the data is coming for your point liability, it just makes the job 10 times and 20 times more difficult. So we basically have to rebuild everything from the scratch, and we still are working on it. But that was probably the most challenging aspect of our accounting here that we've had here.
It's hard enough to build accounting for a complex business model. I think it's so much harder to build when you're already at scale because now it's not like the business is going to wait until you're done building. Like that month is still happening and you still need to close the books and report. So I totally understand. I am very curious though. So it sounds like you have a lot of technical accounting nuance, but then there's also like really unique, revenue models and points liability models. What software tools are you using in your accounting team?
So one of the fortunate things that I saw when I first joined this company was that the company already implemented NetSuite like a
Mm,
year and a half ago. But NetSuite was basically a skeleton of a system, right? It didn't have billing or revenue engine. It didn't have fixed assets module. International entity that we set up was using, incorrect functional currency. So, so as a result, like majority of our processes were incredibly manual. So you can
mm,
imagine Excel sheets after Excel sheets, Google sheets after Google sheets. Like for revenue recognition, we used to get a massive dump from our data warehouse. We massage it, right? I'm
yeah.
sure a lot of companies can resonate here. And then we somehow, if you are lucky not to crash your Excel, then you're able to create journal entries, and that's how it worked. And our
Mm,
in addition to that, like our billing was separated from our revenue accounting. So we had a massive disconnect between like unbilled and deferred revenue, and that reconciliation was such a mess, right? But I think one bright spot of all of our original tech stack was Ramp. So,
okay.
we had a partnership with Ramp. We've been using it for T&E and bill pay. And it just integrates super well with NetSuite. And it's easy to use both for our employees and our accounting team. And our employees really love it. I mean, to this day, we're still
That's
using
great.
it. And Ramp is a great partner of ours. And so that was a good spot.
What do you use Ramp for?
Yeah, credit cards, right now, credit cards, bill pay, and T&E reimbursement.
That's great to hear. Honestly, when tools work fantastic, you're just like, that's a whole thing I don't have to worry about. And then you can go fix, the problem children.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. We now have a middleware. We use Workato that connects all of our systems like CRM, our data warehouse, Slack, and
Mm,
multiple other systems directly into our NetSuite. We now have two different AI based systems, primarily driven by AI. We use Klarity and Numeric here. We have a FinOps system. We use Tesorio that we use to manage collections and email campaigns. And we also use it to kind of predict when the customers will pay us to help with our cash forecasting. We're super heavy Slack culture here. Super, super,
yes.
super. I mean, we have probably thousands of Slack channels. Some people don't even check our emails. It's all in
Yeah.
Slack, right? Even the third party providers are on Slack.
Yeah.
So what that means is we connected our tools and systems with Slack as much as possible. So we're approving invoices on Slack. We're approving journal entries in our Slack. So
That's pretty cool.
yeah, yeah. But
But like this whole Slack versus email thing is interesting. Like I was definitely in the camp of if you email me, I'm basically never going to reply. So if you want, because the thing is like you have to keep checking Slack, and there's no option. You can't say I'm never going to look at Slack. So then at that point, I'm like, I'm not going to look at two different things. So don't, especially if you're internal to the company, just like do not send an email unless you want this to just get buried forever.
yeah,
But I do like the idea of having all these Slack bots, and I think more and more people are doing those bots. I love the Slack Connect integrations where you have a vendor and you're doing implementation and things just move a lot faster in that environment. But, jury's out. Some people hate it and they tell me they
there are
hate
pros
it.
and cons. There are pros and
There's
cons.
pros and cons. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a lot of interruptions during the day.
yeah. Of all, just to finish my thought here, of all the tech stacks that we started building, one main theme that we wanted to achieve was comprehensive orchestrated integration amongst all of our systems. So we want all of our systems to talk to each other, not just one way, but both ways. So if there's any data inconsistency coming in and out, that we can catch it. And that
Mm-hmm.
allows us to run all of our systems with using consistent data across all the systems.
Yeah. For sure. And you mentioned Clarity and Numeric. I've been, customers of both of those tools. And I think really they just are easy to implement and they have a lot of value to the team very quickly. I am curious, like, what is your tech solution for your points liability? Because I feel like that dynamic is much more tailored to your business and not something that, I don't know. Are there off the shelf SaaS tools for something like that?
Yeah, there's nothing, to the best of my knowledge, there's nothing available at this
Yeah.
point. If you really think about it, only very large established companies offer points. Like you think
Right.
about United Airlines, you think
Mm-hmm.
about Marriott, those loyalty programs, Starbucks.
Mm-hmm.
I would be I would be super surprised to see if they're using some sort of standardized tools and systems out there as opposed to customizing their own ERP. So based on what I can tell, we're trying to standardize as much as possible using our internal tools, but at the moment it is very manual exercise.
Yeah, this is one of my big insights, and honestly, the thing that motivated me to work on Lumira, leaving OpenAI. Because at OpenAI, our version of points liability is GPU accounting, right? You have this insane complexity. You're operating at a scale. Most people get some AWS or GCP bill and they're done with it. They don't have to do much more. We ended up building our own, set of Python scripts and things we could do to
Mm,
move out of Excel to that. Not because we loved coding, it's because like nobody builds. You can't go buy like GPU accounting software. Those things just don't exist. And with AI writing code now, I think it might be a little bit of a time of renaissance for these very nuanced custom business logic. And I've been having a lot of fun plugging into different companies and seeing, okay, like, if you're a healthcare company, you get insurance PDFs. How can we turn that into, not a data entry nightmare, but something that can be streamlined all the way to where you need it to go?
yeah.
I don't know. Maybe we should talk about that separately. uh, but it sounds like you've made just like leaps and bounds progress on tech stack implementation. Out of the tools you mentioned, what would you say was the biggest game changer?
Probably Clarity Automate. And
That's
let me
awesome.
give you some context, right? So when I first joined, like I said, we were super nascent. Just for the people who may not fully aware of what Clarity Automate does, what it does is their AI model reads revenue contract or any contracts for that matter and extracts relevant information, relevant data for our, billing and collections and revenue accounting. Okay. And what we are also using it for, and which is part of their service offering, is that it matches the data, extracted data, against our CRM, Salesforce in our case. And it allows us to maintain our CRM data with higher fidelity because our salespeople are actually going to use the data to manage their pipeline and forecast and etc. So for us to be able to have a consistent data between CRM and Clarity and ultimately NetSuite, that was a huge success. So that's
That's
one.
huge.
Yeah, that's huge. And historically, and I think I saw this metric at Clarity conference about how DoorDash used to only review 19% of their contracts for Clarity Automate. We were
Yeah.
worse. Like we probably saw maybe 5, maybe 10% of our contracts.
Because you just can't have bandwidth to review every single one of them. Or, as much as you try, like how many people are you going to hire on that team to review it manually?
Exactly. I would say we're reviewing anywhere up to 95%, 98% of our contracts at the moment. So without having to add too many people, I think this may be worthwhile to point out. So our brand partners are currently onboarded to our platform almost manually. Our implementation team onboard them using the data that's in CRM,
Mm,
and you hand key that into a separate proprietary platform. So oftentimes that whole process is so human driven that it was kind of vulnerable for human errors, right? So what we're working on right now is how do we actually manage that through Clarity? What
hmm
we're doing right now is that okay, let's connect Clarity with our data warehouse. We use Snowflake.
hmm
What that means is once the implementation team onboards the partner and they set it up in our proprietary system and it feeds into Snowflake, and then it's going to come right back to Clarity. So there's going to be a three-way matching between CRM, Clarity contract, i.e. contract, and Snowflake. So we are able to see and confirm and validate whether all of our data streams are operating on the same data
Yeah.
consistently. To me, like even the possibility of like being able to do that, which doesn't require a lot of human intervention, it's a huge success. So I would say Clarity Automate so far has been the biggest success.
Okay, no, that is amazing. And, I feel like I relate to this because I know the problems that happen when you don't have these in place, right? It's like death by a thousand cuts. And the idea of sending data to your warehouse and then bringing it back to tie it all together, that is like what beautiful accounting dreams are made of. And you guys are living that dream.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
No, that's amazing. So with all the tech upgrades and you've had a lot of building to do and it sounds like you're in your happy place because you said you are a builder at heart. What is your current close timeline at Fetch and where do you want it to be?
Yeah, let me correct that. Am I
Okay.
at a happy place yet? No, we're still work in process, right?
Okay.
I've been here 14, 15 months. So, and I had to do two different audits last year. So obviously we're still, working towards the better
Right.
state, but we're much, much better than last year. That's for sure.
That's good.
So right now, so when I first joined, it's the same story. You probably heard from everyone like, oh, the team never closed, right? Or team closed
Yeah.
to day 25. Similar stories here. It, and this is not a shot at the previous team. I mean, they did everything they could to support the company. The team was just very lean.
Right.
So there's a lot of like kick the can down the road, issues, which is not
Um,
it's not their fault. It's just like they needed better leadership, they needed more human resources, and etc. So right now we close on BD9, so that's a massive improvements before. But we are planning to close by BD7 by the end of Q2 and BD5 by the end of Q4. So we're
wow.
making progress.
That's some big strides very fast. You talked about a lot of the wins. Where is your team, still feeling that pain of manual work? Like, what do you think are the next big wins you have to chase after to get from the 9 day to 7 day to 5 day close?
Let's see. That's a good question. I think some of the manual processes are related to reconciliations, right? I've been kind of looking at the market to see if there's any like AI driven solutions for reconciliations, you got to find a way to auto feed the data into the work paper and somehow create a reconciliation. Even then, you also have to make sure the data that you ingested is in fact accurate and validated for you to move on and be able to close that account effectively.
Yeah.
So I think reconciliation, I'm looking forward to, I'm hoping that the next generation of AI, which seems to be an agentic AI, is something that we can connect to multiple different applications like banks, right?
Yeah.
A read only, even read only access will do wonders, and be able to connect with NetSuite and just do cash reconciliations, probably on a AI automated basis.
Yeah, I recently saw a demo of this company called Maxima. It's actually built by a former controller who really understands this, like kind of where people spend time. So you might want to check out a demo. They have these integrations to various tools, including banks, and they do transaction matching at scale. Might be worth a
I,
check.
I would love an intro.
Yeah, we'll make an intro
Yeah,
outside of this podcast.
yeah.
It's crazy how we are recording this conversation, but so much of this is just like sharing notes. I'm really amazed by how beautifully you've orchestrated that clarity process, and there's always new things that we want to go keep making better. What would you say is a product? So we talked about reconciliation and transaction matching. Is there anything else that's on your wish list? Like, what do you want people to go build for you?
Audit PVC.
Yeah. Take the PPC list and build it for you, right?
Seriously, right?
Yeah.
And help us roll forward PVC as well,
Yeah. You know
right?
what we did at OpenAI? I was
Right.
a huge skeptic of this. So Deloitte came to us and said, give me full access to Numeric and NetSuite. And I was like, wait, you want full access to NetSuite where you can just go look at stuff yourself? And they were like, it's not a big deal because, what are you going to do if we didn't have access, we're going to ask you and you're going to have to go pull it. So like, we'll just pull it. And that actually saved us a lot of time. Like a lot of the PBCs, they just checked off themselves because they're like, we pulled it from either Numeric or, the procurement tool or
Oh my
NetSuite.
God, you're so
Yeah.
brave. I mean, PwC asked us the same thing, and I said, well, next year, because I don't know if I'm ready to expose anything
it,
yet.
it took me some time to get comfortable, but then I'm like, well, what is even there that they're going to look at that they won't look at otherwise? You're going to give them the full GL dump, like,
Yeah,
for their journal entry testing. So at
yeah,
some point,
exactly.
I'm just like, I got over it. But I'm just saying from our team's time saving perspective, I'm sure Deloitte still had to spend a lot of time on this stuff, but until they build that PPC tool, you might want to consider it.
Yeah.
Just push the
Good.
work back.
That's a good reco. Yeah, but it's definitely a very time consuming process. I wish there was a way that we can automate it.
Yeah, for sure. I would say, Sean, of the conversations I've been having in my last, few months or so after I left OpenAI and meeting a lot more people in the industry, you're definitely like really, kind of leading the charge on AI adoption. And I feel like you've really kind of understood the capabilities and the limitations and where it helps a lot. So that's really great. I'm curious if you have any kind of learnings or lessons you can share, especially around, how did you integrate these new tooling to your existing team? Was there a learning curve? Can you tell me a little bit about the people side of the adoption?
Yeah, I learned. I didn't actually learn. I heard about this framework or mindset that will be quite beneficial if you start to deploy it to your team. I heard this from, I think it was, his name is Jeremy something. He's a Stanford professor,
Mm,
and what he said really resonated with me. So he said, treat AI like you're a teammate, right?
mm,
What that means is, as opposed to like a tool or utility, what that
yeah,
means is just like you're supposed to train and help your teammates get better, you're also supposed to be, if you approach AI in the same manner, then you will be much more successful and beneficial when you're leveraging AI. I think that totally makes sense. Like, don't have an expectation that AI will be like 100% accurate, from the start, and it'll just magically solve all of your problems and issues. Instead, try to approach it like you just hired a brand new hire who is amazing at analyzing, behaviors and trends and be able to do repetitive things. But you also need to have an expectation to really train the model to ultimately help you and your team better. And that's the same process that when you hire someone you have to onboard, train. So ultimately, 6 months down the road, the person can continue to add incremental value. And that's the framework. I started kind of preaching to my team where look, we have to be sometimes patient
Mm-hmm.
because it's just you cannot have an expectation of perfection here, but it will get better as you continue to help the model and system get better over time.
Yeah, no, that's a really good tip because I think when people think about, AI for finance, people expect I can drop my, 10 tab, very complicated Excel file and it's just going to like one click automate it for me. And maybe one day the models will be really good and they'll do that. But today they're not. And so you kind of get this like huge excitement about something and then you get hugely disappointed that oh no it's like it's not worth the hype and then you kind of walk away from it. But I think there's a lot of value in trying to really understand what it can do and cannot do and then enjoy the benefits while you can for your team. It's really interesting. I At OpenAI, we had to use AI out of desperation. Like we just didn't have people. The business was like kind of growing really fast where what other choice do we have, right? It's like the engineers don't have time. We had to learn how to do SQL. You can either spend time on a SQL course or you can just go to ChatGPT and try to get it to help you. So I think the adoption was really organic. But in similar ways, like we've definitely seen just like benefits across the board. Sean, thank you so much. You've been so generous with your time. I've learned a lot talking to you and hearing you talk about just how much progress you've made in the time that you've been at Fetch, but also all your previous gigs. Thanks for being a guest today on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.